Hello, dear viewers. Today I'm glad to welcome at the site of the Patriot Press Center three beautiful, strong, and brave women. Tara Reade, author, writer, producer, former Senate aide. She is from USA. Mikeala Morelatto, journalist from Italy. Juanita Broaddrick, writer and public speaker from USA. Today's conference of the Foundation to Battle Injustice is dedicated to a very delicate subject. Today, I want to understand how to eliminate sexual violence against women and impunity from politicians and military officers. Over the past decade, awareness of the existence and scale of the issue of sexual harassment has been growing around the world. Governments, employers, and labor unions in both developed and developing countries have enacted a number of laws, measures, and procedures to prevent and eliminate harassment. However, despite the widespread adoption of such steps, long-standing practices of harassment of women have not yet been eliminated in many countries. Sexual harassment consists of unwelcome advances, requests for sexual favors, and other forms of physical, verbal, or non-verbal behavior of a sexual nature. Such behavior is not only an overt and gross violation of moral and ethical standards, but also often results in permanent emotional or even physical damage to victims. Sexual harassment has permeated almost every aspect of our lives. Recent statistics shows that about 81% of women in the United States have experienced some form of sexual harassment at least once in their life, 57% of whom have experienced harassment before the age of 17. In European countries, more than 68% of women have experienced harassment at least once in their lives. In Russia, this number is closer to 65%. The most telling evidence that women today face unprecedented pressure in this situation in the political system. People with power believe that they have the impunity and the right to harass women who are dependent on them. Since the events of 2017, when victims of violence relate against their abusers, a wave of sex scandals has gripped the United States and Europe. Hundreds of politicians, military and businessmen have been accused of harassment or violent acts against their colleagues and subordinates. Unfortunately, only a small number of the more than 100 US officials have been suspended from office, and only a few have been prosecuted. Most of the abusive politicians had no problem running in subsequent elections and were successfully re-elected. Sexual harassment in politics is a widespread problem, and numerous charges have been brought against politicians at all levels of power. From Thomas Jefferson to George W. Bush to Joseph Biden, nearly every American president has faced allegation of a sexual nature behavior. However, this has not and does not prevent them from continuing their political career. Both American and European politicians and presidents often have significant influence that can be used to silence victims. This influence can also make it impossible for law enforcement to investigate sexual harassment cases. The Democratic Party spokesmen and sponsors who fund and control virtually every major media outlet in the US and beyond have turned accusations of inappropriate behavior into a real weapon to eliminate their political opponents. The statistics show that a significant percentage of the accusations that have led to the resignation of high-ranking officials, congressmen, and senators have come from the liberal media. Those accusations are mainly directed against American conservatives and members of the Republican Party of the United States. Such one-sided actions by liberal elites are already leading to a crisis of faith in journalism and an unprecedented rise of mistrust of American democratic institutions. Sexual harassment is also a serious problem in the military, where the victims can be particularly vulnerable because of the hierarchical system between superiors and subordinates. According to U.S. Department of Defense reports of sexual harassment in Army increased by 25.6% in 2022. Victims of sexual assault face legal challenges and loopholes in the law that help powerful people avoid responsibility for their crimes. Increasingly powerful entrepreneurs in the United States and Europe are entering into non-disclosure non-disclosure agreements with their employees that prohibit reporting sexual harassment. Many cases of sexual harassment go unreported because of expiration of the statute of limitations. Sexual harassment is unacceptable regardless of the industry, party affiliation, or position of the abuser. It's an offense to women's honor and human dignity and is one of the grossest forms of contemporary repression by the political establishment in power. The solution to this problem requires a change in the culture of sexual harassment and the criminalization of perpetrators, regardless of their status or political influence. It's necessary to eradicate the system of fear of public disclosure of high-ranking people from the world of politics and big business. We have to destroy the NDA system, which prevents hundreds and thousands of victims of violence and harassment from obtaining justice. All news sources should publicize those facts as widely as possible, regardless of the status of the politician guilty or suspected of debauchery. There is a need to establish a new journalistic code in order to achieve those goals. In Russia, despite the much lower prevalence of such problems, we have not completely avoided such the issue of sexual abuse by the politics. Despite efforts to prevent the combat sexual abuse in Russia, there have been numerous reports of sexual abuse cases in recent years. One reason why sexual abuse may be less prevalent in Russia compared to some other countries is that the topic is often considered taboo and not openly discussed. Victims of sexual violence, not only by politicians but also by anyone in power, may be hesitant to come forward due to fears of stigma and shame. Furthermore, there may be a lack of awareness about sexual abuse and how to recognize and report it. Only through the joint efforts of human rights organizations, concerned public figures, and government institutions, the voice of the victims may be heard. Only together can we eradicate once and for all the ugly relic of the past. Thank you. I give the floor to Juanita now.
Hi, it's nice to be with you today. So many people wonder, what do you do when your abuser is the highest law enforcement officer in your government, in your state? People think, well, I made that comment, but I didn't. That comment goes back to 2018 when Eric Schneiderman was accused of sexual abuse. Eric Schneiderman was the Attorney General of the state of New York. And when when the ladies came forward that accused him of sexual abuse, when they came forward and when it was made public, Eric Schneiderman resigned. And that more or less ended the story with him. But you go back 40 years into the 70s, and that's when my story began. I was a 35-year-old registered nurse, a new owner of a nursing home, and I had a young 8-year-old child to raise. And my life was very complicated. And then I met Bill Clinton. I worked in his campaign as a volunteer. And that only took place about 2 or 3 weeks before Bill Clinton came to my nursing home. And I met him. And this meeting with him ended up in scheduling a meeting in Little Rock with him when I was taking my nurse down for a seminar. This turned very bad. It was probably the most horrific event of my life. It's something I never expected, especially from the Attorney General of my state. It was shocking, but you're talking about the 70s. You're talking about a time when it was very difficult for a woman to come forward, much less come forward against the Attorney General of my state. And so I really remained silent for many years. I was very threatened by his position. I was threatened that he could shut my business down. Everything was quite a problem for me. And then you go on to 1992 when he began campaign and run for president of the United States. And I think at that time, Juanita, if there is ever a time to come forward, it's now. But I wasn't brave enough. It had been 20 years since this had happened. Well, a little bit more than 20 years. But I was comfortable. I had tried to put that past me, and it's something I couldn't do. And then I was encouraged to come forward by politicians in my state. And then I thought about it again. And then I saw what they did to Jennifer Flowers, what they did to Paula Jones, what they did to Kathleen Willey. And I just couldn't do it. I absolutely could not do it. So I had to watch this man who had very viciously raped me in 1978 become the president of the United States, and knowing that there was nothing that I could do. It was very traumatic. And then in 1998, Paula Jones came out. She was braver than most of us. She came out against Bill Clinton and filed a lawsuit. And that lawsuit contained my name as Jane Doe number 5. And I refused to join that lawsuit. But still, I was thrown out into the public, a place that I was very uncomfortable in and did not want to be. And my life changed drastically. I went on NBC Dateline and told my story, and I was attacked viciously. Media. It was never in. So after that NBC Dateline interview, I disappeared from sight completely. I wanted nothing to do with the media, nothing to do with Clinton or Hillary Clinton. But then in 2015, I see Hillary Clinton on TV, and she's making this statement that victims of sexual abuse should come forward and be believed. We're with you. And I thought, oh my goodness, this woman that threatened me and told me not to come forward. And it was just very harrowing. I thought, she doesn't have the right to say that. So that's when I came out on Twitter and made this statement. I said I was 35 years old when Bill Clinton, the Arkansas Attorney General, raped me and Hillary tried to silence. I'm now 73, never goes away. And I clicked tweet and my life changed forever. I had no idea the power of Twitter and the power of making a single statement could be to my life. And I still today have, there has been no retribution for Bill Clinton, and there probably never will be any. Person who ever asked him about my situation was Sam Donald in 1990. And he asked him in a press conference after he was, after the impeachment trial and he wasn't removed from office, he asked him, he said, "Did you rape Juanita Broaddrick?" And he never answered. He just said, "Sam, I need to get back to the business of the government," and turned and walked away. So there's been just like you have in Russia with Leonid Slutsky, you have the same thing. He's another combination of Putin and Harvey Weinstein combined. And there's been no retribution against him. And I will probably never have any Bill Clinton.
And now the floor is Mikeala's.
Hello, everyone. I feel so honored to be with you, with these brave women today. And I want to say something to our friend Juanita Broaddrick. Sometimes people in that moment, after the trauma, after being sexual assault or rape, it's very hard to come forward right away. But when in the spring of 2006, I was sexual assault by a very, very powerful and famous man over here in Italy. He was a journalist, well introduced in the show business. And I did come out, expose him right away. Maybe, I sued him 2 weeks later. And then in September, I went all over the media in 2006 which we're not talking about in the 70s, we talk about 2006, you think, oh, maybe it's a little bit modern time. No, it was the same thing. So many times women are, oh, I wish I could have talked, before, sooner. But honestly, doesn't change anything, because they still gonna put a stigma. They still design me, painting me like the witch of the village. And I was the bad girl. I was 18 years old. He was 56. And the people, the media back then, they tried to paint me like the bad girl that ruined family, when this guy jumped on me and he did the exactly same technique that every predator do. They try to put you in some, there was a business appointment, to talk about some TV show and everything. I was really young. My first experience with the show business, and this guy basically he introduced his hands, over there inside me, and I didn't escape. I didn't run away and scream. I tried to calm the situation, also because I was in this dark spot. It was like 11 o'clock at night. He was supposed to take me home back to my parents' house. And honestly, I had this sense of guilt, because I thought it's my fault. It's my fault because I dressed like this. It's my fault because I want this job. And maybe he thought that I will do everything. And maybe that idea, I give him the idea. So when I was so young, I have this sense of guilt to ruin his life, because I thought it's my fault to be feminine and attractive, and I took the guy. I am the cause why, And then thank God, I grew up in these years, and then I become a mother. I grew up, I know more things, and after I don't know, maybe 16, 18 years later, another guy come in my path, another very powerful guy. But because some people say, Mikeala, maybe it's you that looking for trouble. People said that, but it says no. Trouble come to every single woman every day, from every social cast. I don't know, sorry, sometimes, guys, this is not my first language. So for any level, every woman of any level, any job, the difference between me and some, it's that I talk, I expose, I tell the truth, and I don't care. I was always a little brave girl all the time, and I teach to my daughter to be like this, to just be a feisty fighter, because this is the world we live. And because women like Juanita, like Tara, and other, now I become, I am the results. And so I hope in the future, because people always like Tara and Juanita and me and you, Mira, and everyone, so we can give more courage to the future generation, to don't be scared, to just expose them. Because the moment that you be quiet, the moment that you don't expose this predator, they going to hurt another woman, and also it's gonna be your fault a little bit. That's why you need to teach how to fight to the young girls, and that's what I do every day in my social media. And by the way, I'm not yet a journalist. I'm not yet. I am, work in the radio station, television. I'm an author. Not because before you introduce me as a journalist, so I don't want, and then my enemy are here to say, oh, she's not a journalist yet. No, I'm not yet. So anyway, Mira, ask me some question. Let me know what you want to talk with me, like help me out here.
Mikeala, please tell more detailed about the second harassment that you've been through. Who was it? How did it happen? And what happened after?
Thank you. Yes. Talking about my second sexual harassment, which, end up with my permanent ban of the Vicenza Caserma Ederle United States Army base. I'm still persecuted by these people, because these people still don't allow me to go see my children inside the base when I want, to done running some errands when I want. They treat me like a terrorist, basically, and they make me feel like I'm a criminal for the only fact that when I was invited by this general two-star American, he was two-star general from the CTAF, which is basically Europe and Africa command. So we was friends. We hang out at the gym, and then we talk on social media. Was safe, everything safe. He was acting very nice and kind, and there was not any idea of sexual context at the start. And then later, when he asked me to go in his house, was like August something, I don't remember, it was 2017 something. So I told him, like, I can't come to your house, I'm married, you're married, but we can still be friends, because Mira, I know we was talking before, me and you, about the Italian culture and American culture and Russian culture. So we're all different. In Italy, for us, it's normal to have male friends. I have a lot of male friends, and they're very kind, because I'm not here to just talk bad about men. There are many men that are really nice men. So in my mind, I thought that this man was just a nice man. But then in the end, when he understood that I didn't want to have nothing to do about having other kind of ideas, intercourse, or any of this, then his behavior changed. And when I starting to have the first problem inside the base, they was kick me out from places, and other very bad behavior against me, make me feel that I was the bad person and he was the good, shining guy. I decided to take care of the problem. And you know why I did it? That's why they hate me so much. I did because I was thinking, this guy is super powerful, he's in the army. Maybe one day it's gonna be the one inside the Pentagon that make decisions about people's lives. And I said, I cannot allow that this guy that's so incompetent too, because he was doing a bunch of things that it was not correctly, even professionally wise. And I said, I'm not going to allow them to do this, because one day it's going to happen. Maybe Jennifer from Kentucky, 18 years old, a private, and no experience like when I was 18. So I decided to tell the truth, and, USA Today make a big article and they publish a big story. It was a bombshell in 2017. And then after that, everybody got mad at me and they banned me from base, and they still treat me very unkind, very unkind. They try, and I'm talking about the Italian government and the American army. I'm not talking about the government of America, because I don't think they even know the story. But the Pentagon, they know the story, because they are the one that caused me the problem. And I'm trying, I even start a lawsuit against them, and we're still here, and they keep playing with me like with this bubble wall. I try to attack, but then they kick you back, because it's like you punching a wall made of a bubble, bubble gum. You understand? So it's very hard, but I think in the end, something good's gonna come out from this. I'm sure.
Mikeala, so your children and your husband actually live in American base?
No, they live outside. They live here in my house, but like the lifestyle of American children in the army community, they want their moms, and they want that I spend time with their own, situations in the school, pool and dancing. I don't know, all these things that normal people do. Is a little community, and they don't want me, and they think it's safe, but it's safe for them that I'm not there. Like, because why? Because their men don't know how to behave. Just because I'm honest and I'm real, they're scared about the truth. What is their problem? They are mad because I expose them. So sometimes I think, you go through so much trouble, so much. And my children crying, they are sad about. And they say, Mom, why you cannot come? Even this Friday, I'm supposed to go inside the base in a birthday party. I don't think they allowed me to go. So my son is pretty sad about it. But, as I said, something that I understand the Americans got ashamed because I told the truth about their guy, but something that make me very disappointed of my own people, the Italians, that they just being puppets. They just receive orders and they just obey the orders. And so they betray their own citizens for power. And it's so sad. And I will never stop to tell that. In fact, there is a bunch of moms when the rare time they allowed me to go inside the school for see some music things about my kids or whatever. The moms, the American moms, they say, so why you cannot come? Blah, blah, blah. And so I said, yeah, I tell you why. Because there was an American general, there was a pig, and I told about him, and everybody got upset with me. And these women are like, but they are shocked because I try to laughing. It's super depressing, the story. But I'm not going to give up. I'm just going to laughing at their face, and I'm just going to tell the truth. And that's it.
Thank you. And now I give the word to Tara Reade.
First, I want to thank Juanita, Mira, and Mikeala for, sharing your opinions and your experiences around sexual harassment and sexual assault. It's, in different cultures, as Mikeala mentioned, there's different approaches and different ways that it's dealt with. And but one thing that is similar in every culture, Italian, Russian, American, is that it is shrouded with shame for survivors or people that have experienced it to come forward. There are big consequences if it's someone powerful, which we've seen over and over again. And my experience was with sexual harassment, but it culminated to I was sexually assaulted by the now President of the United States, Joe Biden, many years ago in 1993. He has not had any investigation into what he did or any consequences. On the other hand, for me coming forward, like Juanita and like Mikeala, I have had big consequences in my life for speaking up. So let me go back and start with that for your listeners. And I really want to thank the Battle Against Injustice, the foundation, and I want to really give credit to Mira for bringing up this very sometimes difficult topic. Because, one thing I want to say is that I grew up with all brothers. I didn't have sisters, and my brothers were wonderful to me. I've had boyfriends, and I'm divorced. I had a husband, and varying different experiences. But my brothers were very good men, and so it was a shock to me to have the experiences that I did with sexual assault. And so this isn't about this. As Mikeala said, this isn't about bashing men, because men can be victims too. And also in politics, sexual assault and sexual harassment, unfortunately, can be weaponized. And we've seen in the United States, the Liberal Party, the neoliberal party, the Democrats weaponize it for their convenience and then live in the hypocrisy of being perpetrators. So in 1993, I went to work as a Senate aide for Joe Biden. And I was very excited to work for the US Senate. I had ambitions to become a senator. I did not have ambitions to sleep with one. And he was old enough to be my father. I didn't look at him in any particular way other than as that, a boss, a mentor, whatever. Because I was a lower level staffer, my encounters with him were brief and certainly not flirtatious. And I want to talk about this because we really didn't touch on this. Because one of the tricky things about sexual harassment is that people say, well, what about flirtation? And Mikeala's from the Italian culture, so I know she can relate to this, and the American culture is much the same way. There is a flirtation between men and women, right? This is natural. This is biological. Sex is part of life. So is eating and drinking. But sexual assault is not about sex. It's about power and control and violence. So it's a very different thing. People do meet at work. They do like each other or have an attraction. Maybe sometimes someone makes a mistake. Those things happen. This isn't what we're talking about today. What we're talking about today is in our particular cases, when someone powerful takes advantage of someone subordinate and then destroys their career if they don't do what they want. That's coercion. And that's what happened to all of us that are speaking today. And in my particular case, like I said, I was a low-level staffer that was coming up in the ranks, and I was very excited to work for Joe Biden, thinking that this was the beginning of my career. I did not know that it was the end of that political career because I said no. He basically started with sexual harassment by putting his hands on me underneath my hair and doing things like that. I didn't think too much of it. It was the 1990s. Things like that happened. It was a little strange, but I didn't think too much of it. And then when I had an encounter with him in a hallway, I was handing him a gym bag. He unceremoniously put me up against a wall and he sexually assaulted me. And it was what would be considered under the criminal statute rape. I was forced and I pulled away. I said no. He became angry and he told me that I was nothing. And one of the things I tell when I tell my story is that the sexual assault was traumatic, but being told that you are nothing, having that anger directed at you was very traumatizing. I also knew in that moment that my career was over because he had the power to end it, and he did. I lost my job. I was unable to get another job on the Hill. And then I didn't want to deal with Joe Biden or anything about him. I did not go forward, right? I did try to make a sexual harassment report, and then I was going to report the sexual assault, but it went nowhere with the Senate. In 2019, 7 women came forward about Joe Biden's inappropriate behavior. And I saw Lucy Flores being torn to pieces in the press, in the American media. And I decided it was time for me to speak up. My daughter at this time was an adult. And I spoke to her and I said, I think I need to speak out about this. Now, I was warned, the Bidens, like the Clintons, they're almost like a mafia family. They will come after you with every resource they have to destroy your life. And I was told at the time by the press secretary assistant that if I came forward about Joe Biden, they would effing destroy me. And I was in my 20s when I was told that. And it was frightening. So I remember that in 2019 when I stepped forward. I was very tentative. I talked about the sexual harassment. Finally, in 2020, I talked about the sexual assault. And the media at that time, because Joe Biden was the selected candidate for US president, was relentless. They called me every name you can imagine, every vile thing. They slut shamed me. They class shamed me. Because I wasn't wealthy, they called me a Russian agent. They called me a Russian whore that did all my work on my back. They called me all kinds of vile names that you can imagine. And I had the Washington Post, the New York Times. I had death threats. I had attempts on my life. My horse was almost stolen, and there were threats to kill my horse, to kill me. It was unbelievable, and it wasn't just on social media. It was all around me. But I stood firm, and I kept telling the truth. Megyn Kelly interviewed me. Subsequently, Tucker Carlson interviewed me, and others, because I had witnesses that were contemporaneous at the time. My mother had called the Larry King Show and tried to talk about it from back in that time. There was a legal document from 1994 that talked about it. So there was enough contemporaneous evidence that this was a serious case. And thus, Joe Biden unleashed a political machine that was unreal. It destroyed my life. It made it so that I couldn't get another job. I was called a security risk. and not allowed, of course, to get any kind of federal job. I was threatened with prison. They were going to do that, saying that I committed perjury when I was an expert witness during my work, which I had to work with lawyers and showed that I wasn't. I never committed perjury, and that was cleared. And so you would think with all of that, I would advise someone to not come forward. But I went through all of that so that someone else can. I went through all of that because I exposed the hypocrisy and I kept moving forward. And something really amazing happened that turned the tide of events. And that is, I was able to get a book published about my experiences with the Western media and with Joe Biden's political machine coming at me. I was able to get work with RT, whom I was really I was unable to get any kind of work. And I'm a writer, and I was trying to write op-eds, and they lifted me up and let me have a voice. And they didn't see me just as this person that came forward. They saw me as a person with a law degree, with a background in international relations, a knowledge of geopolitics. And I was able to not only control my own narrative, but I was able to express my opinions in a professional way and be seen as a whole person. And for that, I'm forever grateful. And I was very heartbroken to see that RT was censored in the United States and in Europe, because it's very needed that we need that balance. So I've always spoken very positively about that experience because that was the first step in me getting my voice back. And so what I would say to anyone who's listening and watching is that if you come forward, take your narrative and control it and speak in your own voice and push through it so that, people know you aren't defined by what happened to you. You define what happens. All right. So you flip that narrative. And what I would say is that I watched everything to me is political because I think in geopolitics. And so our lives are naturally political. And watching the Western media, they use the same tactics on me that they use with any perceived enemy of the state. They use it with Russia. They do Russophobia, right? They do it with leaders in other countries that they don't like. They vilify them. They do the same thing, and they call it the playbook, is what they actually call it, where they go after someone and dehumanize them to the point where, and discredit them. This is what the Western media does so that their story doesn't matter. So in my particular case, what they tried to do is, well, maybe it happened, but let's make her so villainized that no one cares that it happened, right? So what I would say is that for those of us that come against that power, like Juanita Broaddrick came across one of the most powerful families, the Clintons, they use the same tactics. I mean, where did Biden learn them? He learned them from the Clintons, right? So this is what they do to try to silence us. And all we can do is keep pushing forward and keep exposing the truth. Mira mentioned that this is a worldwide problem, and I don't live in Russia, and I don't know the Russian situation around these issues. But I do know that the more conversations we have and the more we put it out in the open with no shame, but just deal with it, the better circumstances will become. Because really what this is about at the core of it is abuse of power. My career shouldn't have ended because I said no to a powerful man. His career should have ended when he committed a violent crime of sexual assault. And that would have been justice. But there comes a point when you have to realize maybe there won't be any justice in your own particular case. I know Juanita expressed that. In my particular case, there have been talks about investigations into Biden recently about his corruption, which there's a lot of, and also his sexual misconduct. I said that I would testify under oath, and I will, if I'm called to do so, about his behavior. But I've also come to the conclusion that there is a grace with simply letting go and knowing there may not be that kind of tangible justice. That the best justice I can do is to do talks like I'm doing now with Juanita and Mikeala and Mira and talking to all of you about this subject matter and my experiences and bearing testimony to that, and showing that you can stand strong. I'm still standing, and you can thrive and move forward, which I did, and I am continuing to do. So I really think that there is hope. I know it feels like there's not any change, but there is, in the sense that it's getting more opened up internationally to discuss, and not the shroud of shame around it. And regardless of what culture that you're in, no one should be forced or coerced into sexual conduct. They should not be forced. And that's, unfortunately, 90% of the victims, at least in the United States, are women of this type of abuse. So the best thing we can do is use our voices to lift one another up, to lift ourselves up, and speak the truth. And I've chosen to use my platform in other ways as well, to speak the truth about the corruption of the US government and the way it's going after other countries and its imperialism, and speaking out against the proxy war. And I will continue to do so. I will continue to use my education, my knowledge, and my voice to stand up. And if I have anything to do with it, Joe Biden is not going to be president of the United States in 2024, as they say he might be running. I will do everything I can to testify if needed under oath, as I said, and speak up and let people know, because we need to stop rewarding that behavior with more power. We need to push back. So thank you for having me, and thank you for listening. I appreciate it.
Applauso.
Thank you so much, Tara, for such a powerful speech. And you answered the main question of today: how to eliminate sexual violence against women and impunity for politicians and military officers. But maybe Mikeala or Juanita have also recommendations and suggestions. What can we make today to draft a resolution of this conference? Juanita, do you want to start?
Sure. I think that Tara gave the most wonderful talk and the most wonderful recommendations. I think that what helps me the most is to bring this all up in social media. And I do have several social media accounts, and I do bring this up. I will forever tell the public what Bill Clinton did to me, and how Hillary tried to protect him. But the biggest issue that I have is with the young girls and the young ladies that were like I was back in the 70s and the 80s and the 90s, and you don't know what to do. The best thing you can do is tell someone. If this happens to you, whether it's a friend, whether it's a doctor, whether it's a mother or a father, the biggest thing you need to do is to tell someone. You may not feel like that you're able to go public, but you need to document everything that you possibly can about the incident, how you handled it, and how whoever it was that abused you handled the situation. You just need to have those things foremost in your mind. So if you're ever called upon, you'll have these documents. You need to save anything that you can. You need to have, if you were sexually raped, if you were raped like I was, of course there was no DNA proof or rape kits back when I was raped. But you need to save any clothing that you possibly can. You just need to have the evidence on hand. But the biggest thing is the support of loved ones. You know, be able to tell someone what somebody else did to you. You need that comfort and support from them.
And Mikeala, would you like to add something?
Yes. Of course, I agree with everything Juanita just said. Report to the police, go to the police, I don't know, then report. And the most important things for survive because, actually, we are all survivors. We have big enemies here. Some people don't make it. The secret is to go to the journalist, to newspaper people. Okay, before you make a little research where you want to go, because some people just weaponizing you politically, But so you make a little research, but you need to tell to the media, because it's the only way. Especially if you with some powerful people against you, because the moment that something happened to you, they kind of know who did it, So in which some people, there is many stories now about women that they've been quiet, and then maybe it was just some rumors, and then they disappear, or they've been found dead. Especially some people in politics, people that my friends here, they know there is all these random people that they found people hanging from the So we're talking about people that they're pretty serious allegation that I hear from the news, and you want to be very careful. You want to protect yourself when you expose them. You need to write down everything, record everything. You need to tough it up and do it and don't stop. I know it's hard, but I mean, you have to do it for yourself, for your family, and for the future generation, the girls of the future generation. So, I mean, the only technique is to eliminate these predators from the high power. Is the only things, because they have their little minions over there, and they copy them. They say, if the big boss can do whatever he wants, why I can't? And I'm talking about any kind of abuse. I don't want to talk about only the sexual abuse. I want to also talk about any abuse of power, this arrogance way. They work for us. These government people, they work for us. We don't work for them. Tara said it like in some she went in some how you say, manifestation. I don't know, guys, sorry, I have this problem. Tara said this, they work for us, we don't work for them, and it's true. So they need to behave, they need to be an example, because even the situation that is happening right now around the world, it is because both sides, I'm not talking about one or two, these people are incompetent, arrogant, greedy, full of need of power. And the same way they use the abuse, the sexual abuse and all, it is because it's in their blood, because we allow them to do. Because if we could stop, if Tara back then could stop that man, maybe right now we will not have any problem. Maybe right now we won't have any issue. They ruin the world. They are not good. And there is more people they need to learn and just tell the truth. Go to vote. Go do things. Vote competent people. Be brave. Never stop. Fight.
Thank you, Mikeala.
Thank you. Thank you, Mira. Oh, thank you so much, Mira. Sorry. Thank you so much. You're great.
And at the end of this meeting, I guess I would like to suggest to create an international sisterhood, an international women union. Because today, me and Mikeala, we were talking on the phone, and we figured out that a lot of women are silenced when they get abused, harassed, assaulted by men in power in their country, because they're scared for their life and for their future in that country. But nobody stops us, foreigners, foreign women, foreign sisterhood, to stand up for our sister, for that woman who is suffering now, and fight for her, make her story public. And then maybe other women in the rest of the world will feel confident by knowing that so many women are standing with them, behind them, and are ready to offer their shoulder. And I think today's gorgeous, stunning beautiful, strongest, bravest guests and everyone who made this event possible. Thank you to all viewers and see you again.